Hello everyone, I'm Kason, and today I'm going to do a video comparison of the Apple HomePod and the Google Home Mini. The way I've got this video set up is the comparison is going to have 4 different categories. The first is general inquiries, then smart home capabilities, then sound quality, and finally pricing and overall value. We're going to start with general inquiries. These are the questions that you're going to ask your smart speaker pretty much daily. They include weather, calendar, general questions and definitions, and of course, music. So I'm going to start by just asking them both simply, what's the weather today? Hey Google, what's the weather like today?
Today in San Marcos, there will be scattered showers with a forecasted high of 70 and a low of 42. Right now it's 61 and cloudy.
Alright. Hey Siri, how's the weather today?
It's currently cloudy and 62 degrees in San Marcos. Expect mostly clear skies starting in the afternoon. Today's high will be 64 degrees and the low will be 53.
One thing I just have to point out is I really enjoy Siri's voice. It sounds a lot more natural and a lot more human-like than Google's, but that's not that big of a deal. One thing I have noticed, and you'll probably notice with all of the questions I ask, is that Google tends to give a lot of information and their answers take a lot longer. Siri likes to be concise and quick, which I enjoy. After weather, one of the most common things I like to ask my smart speakers is what's on my calendar today, or to add things to my calendar as things come up throughout the day. This, unfortunately, is an area where currently the Apple HomePod has almost no standing. You can't ask it any questions about your calendar. It will simply tell you it can't do it. I'll show you an example. Hey Siri, what's on my calendar for today?
I wish I could, but I can't access your calendar here.
I don't see a use for this. This thing can access your text messages, your notes, your music library. Why on earth can't it see your calendar? Google Home, on the other hand, is a lot better. Hey Google, what's on my calendar for today?
Alright, Kason. Today, there's only one thing on your calendar. It starts at 12:50 p.m. and the title is YouTube Video.
Awesome. So as you can see, that's really simple, and that's something that I do like to do a lot with my Google Home speaker that I can't do at all with my Apple HomePod right now, which is unfortunate. Another thing I'd like to mention for the Google Home is that you can ask it for a rundown of your day by simply asking it, hey Google, tell me about my day.
Hi, Kason. The time is 11:51 a.m. Currently in San Marcos it's 62 and cloudy. Today, there will be scattered showers with a forecasted high of 70 and a low of 42. Today at 12:50 p.m. you have YouTube Video. Have a good one. Here's the latest news. From Anchor, the outline at...
So as you can see, the daily rundown basically just says the time of day, the weather, what's on your calendar, and then it will even read you news from sources that you can pick within the Google Home app. And I think that's really useful, and that's something that I like to do every morning as I wake up. I just say, tell me about my day, and it will tell me pretty much everything I need to know in a short quip, and then as I'm getting ready for school or work, it will tell me all the latest news that's happening. The HomePod has no such feature, although you can ask it questions like what time of day it is, what's the weather like, and you can even get it to read you the news from select sources. It can't do that all at once, and can't tell you about your calendar. As far as music goes, these guys can both play just about any song you want. The Google Home plays music from either YouTube Music or Google Play Music or Spotify, which is useful, but if you have an Apple Music subscription, you can't do that here. The Apple HomePod, on the other hand, of course does work with Apple Music, but unfortunately that's all that it works with. You can't use this with Spotify or YouTube Music or Google Play Music or anything you can think of. It's strictly Apple Music here, which if you use Apple Music, that's fine. But if you don't use Apple Music and you use anything else, you're gonna have to stream over AirPlay to play it on the speaker, which kind of sucks. The next category I'd like to talk about is smart home capabilities. Both of these do a lot in terms of smart home, and both of them are really useful. They can do simple things like turning on and off your lights, changing the color if your light bulbs are compatible with that, and of course change the temperature in your room by just having a thermostat that allows that. One of the things I really like about the HomePod is that it can be used as a hub for all of your smart devices. The thing is though, everything will have to be compatible with HomeKit. Luckily, most things are, but if it's not compatible with HomeKit, it's not compatible with the HomePod. The Google Home, on the other hand, is compatible with just about everything as long as it can be used with either Google Assistant or IFTTT, which is really useful. One thing I do have to give to the HomePod again here is speed. This thing is fast, especially with all the smart home features that it has. When I ask it to change my lights, it happens almost immediately. When I ask the Google Home to do those things, it usually takes a second or two. Of course, it'll get it done, but this thing is fast. Hey Siri, set lights to office.
Office. Sure.
So this is my office scene. It's where my lights are pretty much bright white. It's what I like to use when I'm shooting YouTube videos, as the lights are pretty natural. Hey Google, set lights to office.
This should help you stay focused.
Still pretty fast, but the HomePod does things pretty much instantly after I ask her, and the Google Home sometimes takes a few seconds. That was a fast time for that, but I have had it take a couple of seconds, and I've wondered if anything's actually even happening. So now we're going to talk about sound quality. And I'm not going to do a sound test over the YouTube video because you can't really tell unless you have extremely good speakers anyway, and the sound quality from these guys are only going to sound as good as the speakers of your phone or computer or whatever you're watching this with. I find that kind of negligible, but I'll just tell you from personal experience. When I walked into the Apple Store, I can tell you that the HomePod blew me away. Even in that crowd of people that were there at the Apple Store that are always at the Apple Store, this thing was set at a pretty low volume and it punched. The basses sounded amazing, and even the high, mids, all that stuff sounded great. It's always really crisp, and especially in a small room like mine, it sounds amazing. A cool thing about the HomePod as well is that it can actually sense the room that you're in and bounce sound off walls or objects so that it fills the entire room as opposed to just being around where the speaker is. I can't really measure how well that works, but I know that it sounds amazing and it fills the entire room. I don't really have anything to compare it to, and you can't turn the feature off, so I don't know what it'll sound like without it, but hey, it sounds amazing, and that's all I can really say. The Google Home Mini, on the other hand, sounds, well, terrible. But you have to look at it like this. This guy's tiny and this guy's huge. This guy's $50 and this one's $350. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for sound quality out of the box with the Google Home, it's just not there. A few pluses that the Google Home does have is support for multi-room audio, which means if you buy more than one of these, you can play music throughout your entire house. The Apple HomePod is adding that feature in the future, but we don't really know when, and it doesn't work now. Another plus for the Google Home Mini is extensibility. Not only can you do multi-room audio and fill your entire house with sound, but if you already have a pretty good speaker system, then you can just plug in a Google Chromecast audio, which plugs into the auxiliary port on your speaker system, and you can set the Google Home to always use that speaker as its main speaker, whether that be when it's talking to you or, of course, music. So, really, if you already have a good speaker system, this is definitely more bang for your buck, but if you don't, this guy's where it's at. The last quality is pricing and overall value. These guys vary in price, extremely. But the thing is, Apple only makes one smart speaker at the moment. Google has a lot of options for you. So if you like the way that Google Home works, you don't have to stick with a crappy speaker. You can upgrade to the regular Google Home, which is a little bit more expensive, but has a much better speaker. Or if you're looking for amazing sound quality, similar to what you have on the Apple HomePod, you can upgrade to the Google Home Max. The Google Home Max is $400, which is $50 more expensive than the Apple HomePod, but if you have an Android phone, you can't use this guy at all. And if you have an iPhone and you just like the Google Home's ecosystem, then that might be an option for you. The last category is pricing and overall value. So these guys have very different prices. The Google Home Mini is $50, while the Apple HomePod is $350. However, you don't have to necessarily buy the Google Home Mini if you're looking for a Google Home experience. There's also the regular sized Google Home, which costs about $70 to $80. It varies every once in a while. And there's also the Google Home Max. The Google Home Max is $400, which is even more expensive than the Apple HomePod. But if you're looking for a Google Home experience with similar audio quality to what this guy's got, the Google Home Max may be for you. I've already kind of mentioned it, but operating support between these two are very different. The Google Home can be used with either an Android phone or an iPhone, and you're not really losing all that many features if you do have an iPhone. You can still even make calls even if you don't have an iPhone. I've got a video which I'll be linking up at the top in the little card or down in the description below that has my overall experience using a Google Home with an iPhone, as I am an iPhone user, so if you're interested in that, check out that video. The Apple HomePod, on the other hand, of course, only works with Apple products. Only with iPhones, only with Apple Music, only with Apple Calendars, I assume, once that support is released. One thing to keep in mind when thinking about value of both of these guys is that hardware may stay the same, but the software can change entirely. These guys could have brand new features or support different things that they don't do right now next week. We don't know. All that Apple has to do to add multi-room support is just push a software update, and all of a sudden, the Apple HomePod can do that. That's the same thing for pretty much everything that I like more about the Google Home. All of that stuff could come to Apple HomePod if Apple wants it to. We just don't know when or what they're going to add. If you've got mostly Apple products in your home right now, the Apple HomePod may be a better value for you as you can use it with all of those products. And because things can be added in a simple software update, the things that I like most about this guy could be added to this guy. So, to sum up, the Google Home's probably for you if you're looking for something to use with Android or just a cheap little smart speaker to do simple things around your home without really thinking about sound quality or streaming a whole ton of music. But if you're deep within the Apple ecosystem, so deep that you're willing to expand it, the Apple HomePod is a great buy. I have loved every minute of using it, but there are some things that annoy me about it, and those things could all change with a simple software update. Alright guys, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. It helps a lot, especially with YouTube's new partner program rules. If you do subscribe, you'll see my new videos as soon as I post them. And I am working on a Apple HomePod full review that's coming up soon, and I'm really excited for that. So, see you guys later.